Where do you fall on this Shohei Ohtani right now? He's come over here, and the velocity is not what people thought it was going to be, John. He really only had maybe one or two hits in all of spring training. Are the Angels having buyer's remorse, or what should we expect, or how are the Angels going to handle this Shohei Ohtani this season?
First of all, Kirk, I would say the Angels are not having buyer's remorse in large part because the investment was not that big. It was a relatively small signing bonus because of the way baseball's international rules work for amateurs, which Ohtani was until he signed this contract. So I think from a standpoint of the outlay, they've got to be comfortable with it. They sat down. It was a really in-depth recruitment process. And I think a lot of trust was developed between the front office of the Angels and his representation at CAA. So I think on that end of things, the Angels are going to be very reluctant to change and really disrupt the overall process that they had put in place for Ohtani a month ago just based on 1 month of underperformance. And candidly, it has been. As you point out, 4 hits, all singles. Command has been spotty on the mound. It was not the spring that they wanted to see out of him. No question about that. All that being said, he's going to start, I believe it's the 4th game of the year on Sunday against the A's. I think the Angels hope somewhat of a lesser pressurized atmosphere. It's not going to be the season opener, not going to be the home opener. So just trying to let him settle in. But to your point, Kirk, the performance has not been there. The Angels, I'm sure, are still happy that he's on their team. But they may have to get very creative. I would say this on Ohtani. Watch very carefully about a month or 6 weeks in. If he's not hitting, what do they do? Do they just say, you know what, we need you on the mound more because that's true. They need him more as a pitcher than a hitter. Do they scrap the hitting entirely and say, listen, we want you to focus on this one really hard thing, which is pitching in the big leagues, as opposed to trying to do 2 really hard things at the same time? It's a great question, Kirk, and it's a great topic overall. But I think they're going to be guarded in their optimism, stay with the plan, but look for an audible potentially being called about 6 weeks into the season if things are not going the right way.
A couple more for you here, John. You know I'm a Bay Area guy, so I'm going to ask you about, first of all, the San Francisco Giants. Obviously, Madison Bumgarner getting ready, his last spring training start. He gets, hit on the throwing hand, going to be out the next 2 months. And you talked about teams going all in. We know the Giants, San Francisco Giants, they're going all in as well. What does this do for the early part of the season? Or does this derail the San Francisco Giants at all, the injury to Madison Bumgarner?
It's a fascinating subject, Kirk. And of course, in addition to the Samardzija injury, as you point out, It's not just one pitcher, it's two.
Right.
So starting, I love this, by the way, starting tomorrow, Dodgers-Giants. Marquee rivalry goes back to the late part of the 1800s there in New York City. This ancient rivalry, the matchup is going to be not Kershaw and Bumgarner, Kershaw and lefty Ty Blach. And you say if you're a Dodger fan, well, we've got a good chance to win this game. Not necessarily. Ty Blach in his career against the Dodgers, a 2.23 ERA. For some reason, they just do not see him very well. He's a quality pitcher that I think people are overlooking here. So I would say the Dodgers and their fans do not count on an easy win at opening day because the Giants are throwing a guy in Blach who they've really struggled with from a Dodgers offensive standpoint. But to your point, they really went all in trying to fortify this club after a disappointing finish last year. They were last place in the NL, really overall, last place in the whole league. Yeah. But they bring in McCutchen, they bring in Longoria, and Kirk, I'm encouraged by this. They had the best team OPS of any team in the major leagues this spring training. Now, you could say, well, what do spring training numbers mean?
Right.
To me, it says this lineup was not as bad as it looked last year. I'm not saying they're the best team offensively, but they're certainly better than what we saw in 2017. So I'm optimistic. They're going to have to find a way, though, to hit their way to some wins early on because they'll have some untested younger arms in the rotation, and Derek Holland coming in as a minor league free agent. He's going to be part of that opening day rotation there for the San Francisco Giants.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.